At my husband's funeral, the air smelled of incense and roses. The imam had just finished the dua, and people were stepping up to place their hands on my shoulder. They said words like sabr, qadr, he was a good man, in soft, respectful voices. I nodded and said Ameen, even when I felt the ground was shifting under my feet. I held my tasbih and told myself to breathe slowly. Then I heard a voice behind me, young and steady. "Please," she said, "let me see my husband's face one last time." I thought my ears were tired from crying. I thought maybe she meant her brother, or maybe she was confused. But she moved closer, and I saw her face. She was not a stranger to the world, only to me. Her eyes were wet, and her hands shook as she reached into her bag for a tissue. The way she said, "my husband," cut through the room like a knife. People stepped aside for her. Some were looking at the floor. Some were avoiding my eyes. Someone whispered her name, Nadia, as if it was a secret not meant to be said out loud. I stared at her ring, a thin gold band that caught the light. My fingers curled around my tasbih until it hurt. I did not cry. I did not scream. I felt my heart sink like a stone in deep water. My lips moved on their own. Ya Allah, help me. Ya Allah, help me. She looked at me, not with anger and not with shame, but with grief. I realized we were both widows standing in the same room, loving the same man. A man I had washed and fed and adored for over 40 years. A man who had always told me, "Mariam, I am your shade on a hot day." A man whose last words to me, just a week ago, were, "Don't worry, I'm fine." A man who had taken another wife without ever telling me. In that moment, I felt the earth tilt. The world became very quiet. The imam asked the brothers to prepare for the burial, and someone put a cup of water in my hand. I could not lift it. I could only look at her, and then at my husband's face, covered in white cloth, and wonder how many truths were wrapped inside that shroud with him. If stories like this bring you comfort, please follow Voices of Fatima, like this video, and share it with someone who might need it. Have you ever discovered a truth at the worst possible time? What did you do in that moment? My name is Mariam. I am 68 years old. I have 2 children, a son named Yusuf and a daughter named Layla. My husband's name was Hassan. We were married for 43 years. I was 19 when I married him. He came to my father's shop with his uncle to fix a broken radio. He made a joke about the radio speaking more than my little brother, and everyone laughed. He had kind eyes, and he spoke with respect. When my father said, "This young man has good manners," I smiled quietly. In those days, that was enough for me. We did not have much. Our first home was a small apartment with thin walls. At night, we could hear the neighbor's TV. In winter, the wind pushed under the door and made the curtains move. Hassan used to put his jacket on my shoulders and say, "Soon, insha'Allah, I will buy you a warm house." He kept a box under our bed where he put a little money each week. We called it the warm house box. I learned to make tea exactly how he liked it, strong, with cardamom. He learned to fold my scarves so they would not wrinkle. We prayed side by side on a small green prayer mat by the window. On Fridays, he took me to the market and bought me pomegranates when they were in season. He was a simple man in many ways. He woke before dawn, he liked his bread warm, and he always washed his hands before touching the Quran. When our son Yusuf was born, Hassan cried. He pressed his forehead to the baby's head and whispered the adhan into his tiny ear. He said, "My son, may Allah make you a righteous man." When our daughter Layla arrived 3 years later, he held her as if she would break and asked me, "How did we get such beauty in our home?" Those were good days, the kind of days that sit in the heart like quiet light. Hassan worked long hours at a small hardware store. He was honest with customers and gentle with children. He brought home bags of nails, rolls of tape, and sometimes a surprise, a small fan for the hot summer or a soft blanket for winter. Once he came home with a brand new kettle. "So the tea can sing louder," he said, smiling at me. I laughed and told him he was silly. He said, "I like being silly with you." We were not perfect. We argued about small things: the bills, the neighbors who borrowed and never returned, the paint color for the kitchen. But even when we argued, Hassan did not shout. He would say, "Let me go to the masjid and cool my head," and he would come back calmer. I learned to give him space. He learned to say, "I was wrong when he was wrong." These are lessons that take time. There were seasons of hardship. When my father died, I felt my chest cave in. My mother came to live with us for 2 years. She was tender and difficult in the way old age makes people. Hassan did not complain. He would sit with her after Isha and listen to her talk about my father. Sometimes he would fall asleep in the armchair with his head bent and his hands folded. I would cover him with a blanket and whisper, "Allah reward you." As our children grew, our home changed. School bags replaced toys. The table had textbooks instead of baby bottles. Yusuf liked numbers and fixed things around the house. Layla painted flowers on the margins of her notebooks and made dua for the rain to stop when her clothes hung on the line. They were close to each other. They often fell asleep, side by side in the living room, watching some old movie, their heads touching. Hassan loved to take us to the coastline on Sundays. He would buy fresh bread, olives, and cheese, and we would eat by the water. He would hold my hand in a quiet way while the waves broke against the rocks. "Alhamdulillah," he would say, "this is life." He did not ask for more than he could hold. Years turned the small apartment into a home that felt like a worn sweater, soft and safe. The warm house box became our kitchen cabinets and a new carpet for the living room. Hassan never rushed. He never promised big things. He gave me small things that kept us steady. The same chair by the window, the same kettle singing, the same prayer mat rolled out each night. There were signs, looking back, tiny ones, like little shadows in a bright room. A new phone he kept in his drawer. For work, he said. Late nights at the shop when he said the owner needed him. Sometimes I found a hair on his jacket that was not mine or Lila's. It was long and smelled of a perfume I did not have. I told myself it was the shop, the women coming to buy things, brushing past him in the aisles. I told myself to think good thoughts, to give him 70 excuses, as we are taught. Once, on Eid, a friend of his sent a gift with a note that did not have a name. It was a scarf, beautiful and soft, the color of ripe figs. I asked, "Who sent this?" He looked surprised and said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, the shop owner's wife." He smiled too quickly. My heart felt a small sting, like a splinter. I pushed it out. I told myself, "Mariam, do not be suspicious. Allah says do not spy. Be patient." As Yusuf grew older, he wanted to study away from home. Hassan said, "Let him go. A man must test his wings." I cried in the kitchen after Yusuf left, my tears falling into the dishwater. Hassan hugged me and said, "He will call every day." And he did, until life got busy for him and the calls became less. Layla got married at 26 to a good man named Omar. On her wedding night, I sat in my room with my hands open in dua and asked Allah to give her a kind home and protect her from pain. The house felt big. The next morning, Hassan tried to fill the rooms with small jokes and long walks, but the quiet had its own weight. In those years, Hassan began to travel more. "The shop is expanding," he said. Sometimes we must go to the city to see suppliers. He brought home sweets and said, "For my queen." It made me blush even at my age. But I noticed the way he checked his messages when he thought I was not looking. I noticed how his eyes sometimes went far away when I asked him a question, as if his mind was walking on a road I could not see. I had a friend, Razia, who used to say, "Mariam, men are simple, but secrets are not. Ask him directly." I would smile and tell her, "We have lived too long together for silly games. If he has something to tell me, he will tell me." I was proud of my trust. I wore it like a scarf over my heart. At night, when the house was still, I would sit with the Quran and read the verses about patience and trust. And Allah is the best of planners. He knows what is in the hearts. I told myself that if there was a test coming, I would meet it with sabr. I did not know that sabr is sometimes an ocean you must swim through without knowing how deep it is. One winter evening, it rained so hard the streets became mirrors of the sky. Hassan came home very late. His jacket was soaked, and his hands were cold. I warmed his hands between my palms and gave him hot soup. He looked at me as if he wanted to say something. Then he looked away. "Tomorrow will be better," he said. "Insha'Allah." He went to bed before I did, and slept with his back turned. I watched him breathe, and wondered what the sea was like on the far side of a man's eyes. We had good days after that, too. Days that seemed to say, "See? You are worrying for nothing." He would tease me. He would bring me flowers once in a while. He would fix the broken tap and carry groceries up the stairs. He would stand behind me while I prayed and say, "Amin" to my dua. He would stroke my hair with his rough thumb before sleep. A woman can live a whole life inside such moments. She builds a house with them in her heart. The last spring before he died, he became a little quieter. He still prayed, he still laughed, but there was a small distance in the middle of every conversation. I tried to cross that distance with stories about Yusuf's job and Layla's baby. He would nod and say, "Alhamdulillah." He would get tired early. I asked him to see a doctor. He said, "Next week." Weeks were slippery then. They ran away when we were not looking. The day he collapsed, the sun was warm. I had made lentil soup and rice. He sat at the table, opened his mouth to speak, and then he went pale, as if all the color ran out of him. I shouted his name. The bowl of soup fell and broke. My hands shook as I called Yusuf, and then the ambulance. I held Hassan's head in my lap on the floor. His eyes were half open, and his lips moved. I put my ear close and heard him whisper, "Forgive me." I thought he meant the carpet, the mess, the worry he was causing. I said, "There is nothing to forgive." At the hospital, the lights were too bright. Nurses moved quickly, and the clock seemed to laugh at me. Hours became heavy. I did wudu in the restroom and prayed 2 rak'ah in a quiet corner near the vending machine. I prayed for his life, for his breath, for another day with him on our balcony watching the street. I prayed for forgiveness for my impatience and for our small arguments. I promised Allah I would be grateful for every little thing if he would just give me one more sunrise with Hassan. But Allah had a different plan. After 2 days in the hospital, Hassan returned to his Lord. The doctor's voice became a muffled sound in my ears, like rain behind a closed window. I kissed Hassan's forehead. It was cool and smooth. "Go in peace," I whispered. "I forgive you everything." I thought there was nothing to forgive. This is how life shows us that we do not know the whole story until Allah writes it in front of our eyes. I did not yet know about Nadia. I did not yet know how big the word forgive would become in my mouth, heavy and hard to swallow. I did not yet know the second home, the second ring, the second promise. So, on the day of the funeral, when I heard that young voice say, Let me see my husband. I understood that grief can open a door to a room you never knew existed. And once you step into that room, you must choose whether to light a small lamp of sabr or to sit in the dark forever. After the funeral, the house filled with footsteps and soft voices. Women came with trays of food and thermoses of tea. Someone placed a large bowl of dates on the table. Someone else whispered the verses of Yasin in a corner. I sat on the edge of the couch, my back straight, my hands resting on my knees. My heart beat hard, but my face stayed calm. It was the only thing I knew how to do. I could feel eyes on me, the eyes of people who loved me, the eyes of people who loved gossip, the eyes of people who did not know where to look. A friend touched my shoulder and said, "Sabr, Mariam." I nodded. The words sat between my ribs like a stone. I thought of Hassan's white shroud and of the young woman at the graveyard. I thought of the gold ring on her finger and the way the light touched it. Layla sat beside me with her hands clenched in her lap. Her face was flushed and wet. Every few minutes, she stood up and sat down again, as if her body could not hold the weight of her feelings. Yusuf stood near the door, greeting men as they came in. He did not meet my eyes. We buried my husband that afternoon. We buried the life I thought I knew. We did not bury the questions. Nadia did not come to our house that day, or maybe she did, and I did not see her. I was a bee trapped in honey, slow and stuck. But I felt her in the corners of the room, like a draft that moves the curtains when all the windows are closed. I sipped tea without tasting it. The prayer mat lay open on the floor, its green patterns catching the light through the window. Every time the house got quiet, someone else arrived, and it began again. In the evening, after the last visitor left, I stood alone in the kitchen. I picked up Hassan's cup. I turned it in my hands. There was a small crack near the handle I had been meaning to throw away. I put it back on the shelf. I told myself, tomorrow I will start my Iddah. I told myself, 4 months and 10 days. I told myself, stay inside, breathe, count your steps, count your prayers. Then a knock came at the door, quick and light. It was Razia. Her headscarf was loose, her eyes careful. She hugged me with her whole body. "Mariam," she said. The way she said my name made me think of days in the past when we cooked together and shared stories about our children. She pulled away and looked at my face. "I should have told you," she whispered. My fingers curled. "Told me what?" I asked, though I already knew where she was going. My voice was steady. My heart was not. She swallowed. About the other marriage," she said. "I knew for a year. I begged him to tell you himself. He said he would." She looked down at the floor. "I should have told you." The room tilted. My hands went cold. The kettle on the stove hummed softly, as if the metal could feel my shock. "How?" I said. "How did you know?" She told me. Nadia had once come to her shop for sewing supplies. They talked. Razia noticed the way Nadia's eyes moved when she said Hassan's name. She asked questions. Nadia had said, "Please, I don't want to cause trouble." He promised to tell her. Razia had confronted Hassan. He had placed his face in his hands and said, "Soon, soon." He had promised. He had broken that promise. Razia had kept quiet because she thought that was the kind thing to do, the gentle way. I leaned against the counter. I listened. I said nothing. Sometimes silence is louder than any scream. "Why?" I asked. "Didn't you tell me?" My voice was soft, not angry, but it made her close her eyes. I thought, as long as he was good to you, as long as he provided, as long as... She stopped. "I was wrong," she said, her voice cracking. "I was afraid to be the one to break your heart." The damage was already done. The breaking had happened at the graveyard, in front of roses and prayers. I closed my eyes and saw Hassan's face the last morning he left for the shop, the small crease near his right eyebrow, the scar on his chin from when he fell as a child. I saw him everywhere in the kitchen, in the spoon drawer, in the patch of light on the floor, in the steam on the window. "Go home, Razia," I said. "I need to be alone." I was not cruel. I was not kind. I was just tired. When she left, I sat on the prayer mat and lifted my hands. My hands did not feel like hands. They felt like empty bowls. I said, "Ya Allah, you are the turner of hearts. Turn my heart toward you. I do not know what to do with this pain." The room was quiet. My breath was loud. Somewhere, a car passed. Somewhere, a child laughed. Life does not stop when your heart breaks. It is a cruel kindness. The next day, Nadia called. The number was unknown. I let my phone ring until it went quiet. It rang again. I answered. "Mariam?" she said. Her voice was gentle and tired. "It is me, Nadia." I held the phone to my ear and did not answer. I could hear her breathe. I could hear my own heart. Finally I said, "Yes." "I am so sorry," she said. The words came out like she had practiced them 1,000 times. "I did not want to meet you like that. I did not want this." Her voice broke on the last word. "Why are you calling?" I asked. "To ask if we can meet," she said. "Not alone. With the imam. With someone you trust. I want to say things face to face. I know I have no right to ask. But I also know we are both in the same place now." She paused. "We are both widows." I closed my eyes. I could see the day's light moving across the wall. It was a soft day, gray and kind. I thought of my Ida, of the rules and the wisdom behind them. I thought of the voice inside me that said, "Wait," and another voice that said, "Go." The two voices argued without words. "We will meet in the masjid," I said, surprising myself. "With Imam Karim. Tomorrow, after Asr." I spoke like someone giving instructions to a stranger. My own voice sounded old to me. "Amin," she whispered. "Thank you." That night, Yusuf knocked on my door. He came in and sat at the edge of my bed like a boy, though he was a man. He put his face in his hands. "Mama," he said, "I am sorry." I looked at him. The skin under his eyes was dark. His shoulders were heavy. "For what?" I asked, though my heart, always a few steps ahead, had begun to run. "For not telling you," he said. "I knew, not from the beginning, not for long, but I knew for almost 2 years." He lifted his head. His eyes were red. "Baba told me. He made me promise to be quiet. He said he would tell you when the time was right. He said you were strong but also soft, and he did not want to break you." The room swam for a moment. The light bulb above us made a small hum. I felt a cold wind under the door, though all the windows were closed. Slowly, I took a breath. "Why did he tell you?" I asked. "Because I found out by accident," he said. "I went to the city to meet a supplier for the shop. I saw Baba on the street, holding a little boy's hand, buying him ice cream. I called his name. He turned. The boy looked at me and said, 'Baba, who is he?' Baba said, 'This is your brother.' He laughed like it was a joke, but it was not. My heart dropped through the floor. 'A boy?' I whispered. Yusuf nodded. 'His name is Adam,' he said. 'He is 7 now.' I closed my eyes and saw a small hand in Hassan's hand. I saw a child's face, maybe with Hassan's eyes, maybe with his nose. The world shifted again. It did not fall apart. It just moved into a shape I did not know. I placed a hand on my son's shoulder. It shook. You should have told me, I said. My voice was not hard. It was not soft. It was full of everything I could not say. He cried then, a quiet cry that came from his chest. I was a coward, he said. I told myself I was respecting Baba. I told myself it was not my place. I told myself it would hurt you more to hear it from me. I told myself many things. He wiped his face. I am sorry. We sat like that for a while. Mother and son, with a wall between us we did not know how to climb. I wanted to hold him. I wanted to push him away. I did neither. I said, tomorrow I will meet Nadia at the masjid. He nodded. He looked at his hands. He left without meeting my eyes. The next day, the masjid was quiet after Asr. The smell of clean carpets and wood hung in the air. A few women sat in the back, making dhikr. The light from the high windows fell like soft water on the floor. I went in slowly, my scarf pinned under my chin, my steps small. My heart did not race. It moved like a tired bird. Imam Karim greeted me with a kind face. He had known our family for many years. He taught Yusuf Quran when he was small. He came to see Layla when she was born. He had prayed over Hassan's body just a day before. He looked older to me now. Mariam, he said, placing his hand over his heart. Assalamu alaikum. I am sorry we meet like this. Wa alaikumu as-salam, I said. Did you know? I asked. The words came out before I could stop them. He lowered his eyes. Yes, he said. I performed the nikah. He lifted his head and faced me. I advised him to tell you. I told him honesty is part of justice. I told him secrets poison love. He agreed with his head, but not with his actions. His voice was steady, but there was pain in it. I took a breath. I see, I said. My chest felt full of smoke. Nadia came in a few minutes later. She wore a simple black abaya and a soft beige scarf. Her face was pale and tired. She did not wear heavy makeup. Her eyes were red from grief. She sat opposite me, with her hands folded. She was younger than me by 20 years, perhaps, young enough to be my daughter, old enough to know pain. I looked at her and felt something I did not expect, not rage, not a knife, but a deep, aching tiredness that had space inside it for two. Thank you for meeting me, she said, her voice a soft thread. I nodded. Speak, I said. Tell me what you need to say. She took a breath. I met Hassan 8 years ago, she said. I came to the shop to buy a lock. My landlord had changed the door on me. I was alone then. I had a son, Adam. His father had died. Life was heavy. Hassan helped me carry some things. He asked, "Do you have anyone to call?" I said no. He looked at me the way people look at widows, with pity and respect mixed in one bowl. She swallowed. He came to check on the door. He brought me a bag of bread. He said, "If you ever need a ride to the clinic, I can help." He did not push. He did not flirt. He was careful. He said he would ask the imam if there was a way to make my life easier. I did not expect what came next. She looked down at her hands. He proposed, she said. He said he would speak to the imam and to my wali. He said he would tell you. He said he would be fair. He said he had enough heart for two. He said all the words that make a lonely woman's head light and her knees weak. I told him I would not be a secret. He promised I would not. He promised, and he promised. And then he delayed. Tears rolled down her face, but she kept speaking. We married in a small ceremony at the masjid. Imam Karim was there. My older brother stood for me. Hassan said he would tell you after. He said he wanted to do it properly. I believed him. I did not want to be the reason you cried. I told him many times, "Tell her." He said yes, yes, soon. He said you were gentle and proud, and that you would forgive him once you remembered Allah allows a man to take another wife if he is fair. He said he would be fair. He tried to be. But secrets make even fairness feel like a theft. She lifted her eyes to mine. They were not proud eyes. They were wounded and clear. I did not come to ask for your forgiveness, she said. I came to give you what is yours, the truth. And I came to ask for your help for Adam. He is only a child. He loved his Baba. He does not understand why people look at him with questions in their faces. He does not know that love can be a lie even when it is true. I sat very still. I listened to the Imam breathe. I listened to my own heart tap against my ribs. I listened to the city outside, to the far sound of a bus, to a child's laugh somewhere in the courtyard. Then I spoke. Do you have a home? I asked. She nodded. A small apartment, she said. Hassan rented it for us. We did not live far. He came 3 days a week, sometimes 4. He stayed with you the rest. She paused. He talked about you, she added, her voice careful. He did not insult you. He said you were the best part of his life. He said you were the reason he could be kind to the world. I thought, if you were so kind, he should have been brave. But he was not. I closed my eyes. This was the cruelty of it, to hear about my own goodness as a shadow inside another woman's happiness. I wanted to throw every kindness I had ever given into the sea. I wanted to bury my soft heart, but I knew that would be like burying myself. Did he love you? I asked, not because I wanted to know, but because the question was a thorn in my side. She hesitated. He loved the parts of me that made him feel like a savior, she said, surprising me with her honesty. He loved my son's laughter. He loved our small days, but he also loved you. I could see it. It made me angry sometimes. It made me jealous. It also made me respect you. It made me pray for you. We sat in silence for a moment. The Imam cleared his throat. Mariam, he said, there is also a letter. A letter? I looked at him. For you, he said. He pulled an envelope from his bag. My name was written on it in Hassan's handwriting. I recognized the slant, the way he looped the M too wide, the small smudge near the end of my name where his finger had touched the ink. My fingers shook as I took it. I did not open it yet. I held it like it could burn me. May I meet Adam? I asked. The question surprised me. But once it was out, it sat in the blue air like a tiny lamp. Nadia's eyes widened. If you want, she said. He is at my neighbor's now. He is confused. He keeps asking when Baba is coming home. She swallowed. I don't know how to explain death and betrayal in one sentence to a child. We will not explain betrayal, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We will explain death. He is too small to carry all this. We agreed to meet the next day. The Imam made dua for us, his voice low and soft. He asked Allah to place mercy between our hearts. He asked Allah to forgive our dead and to heal the living. He asked Allah to make us instruments of patience and not of harm. I said Ameen, even as my heart tried to run away. At home, I sat on the floor of my room and opened the letter. It smelled faintly of Hassan's cologne. My hands trembled. Inside was a single page, written with care. His words were simple. Mariam, it began, if you are reading this, I have returned to our Lord. I want to ask you for forgiveness, though I do not deserve it. I took a second wife, Nadia. I did it thinking I could carry 2 homes, like a man carries 2 bags on his shoulders. I thought I was strong. I thought I was helping. I thought I was protecting you from worry. I see now that I was protecting myself from your pain, and that was cowardice. I love you. I have loved you from the first day I saw you hand a piece of bread to a stray cat outside your father's shop. You are mercy. You are what I wish I could be. I hid this from you because I could not bear to see your eyes change when you looked at me. I could not bear to be smaller in your heart. I did not tell you because I was weak. I am not asking you to accept this. I am asking you to give Adam a chance to know that the man he loved was not only a liar. I did not do this to hurt you, but I know that is what I did. I left a portion of our savings for Nadia and for Adam. I left the rest for you and the children. I asked Yusuf to help with paperwork. I know you will feel betrayed by him. Do not be too hard on him. He thought he was protecting you, just as I did. I pray Allah will reward you for every meal you cooked for me, for every shirt you ironed, for every prayer you made at night when I could not sleep. I pray Allah will place me in a place where I can finally be worthy of the love you gave me. If there is any gentleness left in your heart for me, I ask you to use it on the child who will miss me. He did not choose this. Forgive me. If you cannot forgive me now, forgive me later. If you cannot forgive me later, forgive me in your du'as. If you cannot forgive me in your du'as, ask Allah to do it for you. Hassan. I folded the letter and pressed it to my forehead. I did not cry. I felt something else, an old, deep exhaustion that had the shape of a prayer. Ya Allah, I said. You heard him. You know what I do not know. You are the judge and the most merciful. Teach me what to do. Teach me what to forgive. Teach me what to keep and what to let go. In the late afternoon, Layla came by. She walked into my room like a storm. How can you sit here? She shouted, and then covered her mouth as if she had cursed in a holy place. Sorry, she whispered. She sank down on the floor beside me. Mama, I want to take you to my house. I want you to leave this place full of lies. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Her love was loud. I am in Ida, I reminded her gently. I will stay here. She nodded, her jaw tight. Then I will visit every day. You have a husband, I said. You have a home to care for. You are my first home, she said, and began to cry again. I held her and let her tears wet my scarf. I will meet her tomorrow, I said softly. The other woman, Nadia. Layla pulled away, shocked. Why? She asked. Why would you give her that? Why would you give her anything? Because I need to see with my own eyes, I said. And because there is a child. A child, she repeated. Her breath hitched. He has a child with her. I nodded. She stared at me with a mixture of pity and fury. I refuse to accept this, she said. I will not accept her as a co-wife to you. I will not accept her as family. You do not need to accept anything, I said quietly. You need to accept that it happened. The next day, I went to Nadia's apartment. It was on the second floor of an old building. The stairs were narrow and clean. There were small plants on the landing, their leaves polished with someone's care. The hallway smelled of cooking onions and cumin and something sweet. Nadia opened the door before I knocked. She must have been standing on the other side, listening for my steps. Inside, the apartment was simple. The walls were plain, with 2 framed ayahs hanging. The couch was covered with a soft, faded blanket. Toys were stacked in a corner. A small car, a blue ball, a wooden train set. There was a photo on a shelf that made me stop. It was Hassan in a park, crouching down with his arms open wide. A little boy ran toward him. Hassan's mouth was open in laughter. The boy's face was bright. I took a breath that did not want to come. Adam, Nadia called softly. Come, Habibi. A small boy came out of a bedroom. He wore a blue t-shirt and gray shorts. His hair was dark and messy. He looked at me with serious eyes. The eyes were Hassan's. My chest hurt. "This is Auntie Mariam," Nadia said. "She is very special to us." The lie and the truth sat together in those words. He walked to me and stood a few feet away. "As-salamu alaykum," he said shyly. "Wa alaykumu as-salam," I said, my voice gentle. "How are you, Adam?" He looked down. "Baba is gone," he said. He did not cry. The words were a fact he was still learning how to carry. "Yes," I said softly. "He has gone to Allah. We will make dua for him together." He nodded. Then he said something that cut me quietly. "Did you love my Baba too?" He asked it like a scientist asks about the stars, curious, not knowing the weight of the answer. I looked at him. My eyes softened without my permission. "Yes," I said. I loved him. The truth was, a gentle knife. He seemed relieved, as if love could be shared like bread without anyone going hungry. He held out a toy car. "He bought me this," he said. "It is nice," I said. My hands trembled. I did not reach for it. I did not have the strength to hold anything that had moved between their hands. Nadia brought tea. The cups were matching. The sugar bowl was the same as one we had at home. Everywhere I looked, I saw a reflection of my own life, but smaller, like a room seen in a tiny mirror. The pain was not loud. It was a rolling wave that moved under everything. We talked. She told me about their Fridays at the park. I told her about our Sundays at the coastline. She told me about the way Hassan cut apples for Adam into small pieces. I told her about the way he folded Lila's school uniform when I was too tired. It was like we were building a bridge out of pieces of the same man, placing them carefully over a river of hurt. Sometimes our hands touched. Sometimes we pulled back. When I stood to leave, Adam hugged me suddenly. He put his small arms around my waist and pressed his face into my side. It startled me. My hands hovered. Then I placed them gently on his back. He smelled like soap and sunlight. "Thank you for coming," he said into my dress. His voice was small and powerful. I walked home slowly. The city moved around me, full of people who did not know my story. The sky was pale blue. A bird flew close to my head and then away. I felt like a glass filled to the brim. One more drop, and I would spill. That evening, Yusuf came again. He stood in the hallway, shifting his weight. "I met with the lawyer," he said. "There are documents. Baba left something for Nadia and for Adam." He hesitated. He also transferred the shop's ownership papers last year to my name. "He wanted to protect you if something happened. He said if anything happened to him, the business would not be stuck in court." My head hurt. The words were too many. "And Nadia?" I asked. "What did he leave for her?" "A small apartment," he said. "This one, probably. And a portion of the savings. Not half, less." He swallowed. He wrote it in a way that follows what he thought was fair. "What he thought was fair," I repeated slowly. The phrase tasted like a dry seed. Fairness without truth is a broken scale. Yusuf looked at the floor. "I know," he said. Later that week, I went to the shop. I stood outside for a long time before going in. The shelves were neat. The same old bell rang softly when I opened the door. The same man, who worked with Hassan, greeted me. "Assalamu alaikum, Auntie," he said, his eyes full of sadness. "I am sorry." I touched the counter with my fingertips. Hassan's notebook lay there, closed. There was a pen beside it, resting like a sleeping thing. I opened the notebook. Inside were lists of orders, dates, small drawings of shelves he wanted to build. On the last page he had written a dua. O Allah, make my work halal and my heart soft. The last word, soft, made me close the book. He had written softness while he was breaking mine. One afternoon, Razia came again. She brought soup and bread. She placed them on the table and did not sit. I went to see Nadia, she said. I told her I was sorry. I told her I should have been braver. I nodded. I did not know what to say. Bravery is a word that changes shape depending on who is looking at it. Mariam, she said, twisting her scarf. There is something else. Her eyes darted to mine and away. The day he married her, he asked me to be there. She swallowed. I stood at the door of the masjid. I did not go in. I told him I could not stand with him if he would not stand honest with you. He said, then stand outside and pray for me. I did. My chest tightened. You were near, I said. I was at home, cooking stew, thinking of what to say when he came back from the shop. You were near. The picture of it made me unsteady. She covered her mouth. I am sorry, she said again. I am sorry for the 1,000 ways I failed you. I nodded slowly. We all failed each other, I said. The words were heavy. The truth often is. Days began to find a rhythm inside my Ida. I woke for Fajr. I read Quran. I cooked simple food for myself. I sat by the window and watched people walk by. Sometimes Layla came. Sometimes Yusuf. Sometimes no one. I found a quiet place inside the house that felt like a cave with a candle in it. I hid there when I needed to. Breathe. I visited Nadia and Adam once a week. We did not announce it to anyone. It was not a secret, it was just private. Adam began to hold my hand when I came. One day, he took me to his room and showed me a drawing he made. It was 4 stick figures beneath a bright yellow sun. Me, Mama, Baba, he said, pointing. Then he pointed to the 4th figure. And Auntie. The word cut me and healed me at the same time. I found anger in surprising places. I found it in the cupboard when I saw the extra teacups Hassan had bought, just because. I found it in the sound of the azan, when it reminded me that he used to wake me with a kiss on the forehead before Fajr. I found it in the blue scarf I had worn on the day of his last checkup, the one he had said looked nice on me. I took the scarf and put it in a drawer. I could not look at it. One night, I could not sleep. The house was full of shadows. I sat on the prayer mat and put my forehead on the ground. I stayed like that a long time. When I sat up, I whispered, Ya Allah, I am not a scholar. I do not know the deep answers. I only know my pain and your mercy. If you allowed this in your law, but it was done with lies, teach me how to separate the two. Do not let my anger be bigger than my faith. I felt calm after that, not because everything was better, but because I had put the burden down for a while. One Friday afternoon, I went to the coastline alone for the first time. The water was gray-blue. The wind was soft. I sat on a bench and watched the waves. A young couple walked by with a baby. They laughed. I did not envy them. I just watched. An old man fed the birds. The birds were greedy and happy. The world was so wide, and my house so small, and my heart somewhere between the two, trying to find a place to rest. It was there, by the water, that I had a thought that would shape everything that came after. It was a simple thought. If I hold on to hate, I will drown. If I let go of all boundaries, I will disappear. I needed to find a way to float. Floating is not as easy as it looks. It requires trust in the water. It requires letting your body do what it knows how to do. It requires remembering that the one who made the water also made me. I went home and slept for the first time in many weeks without waking in the dark. The next morning, I called Nadia. I want to see the paperwork, I said. The nikah certificate, the dates. She agreed. We met at the masjid with the imam again. She brought the certificate. The date on it made my breath catch. It was 6.5 years ago. That meant he had lived 2 lives for many years. That meant the strange phone, the late nights, the rain-soaked jacket, the fig-colored scarf on Eid. It all lined up like beads on a string. I asked the imam, "Is there sin in the marriage?" He said, "The marriage is valid. The sin was in the lying and the injustice. Allah will judge that." I nodded. My heart twisted. Permissible does not always mean easy. Lawful does not always mean kind. Did he provide equally? I asked. My voice was flat. I wanted facts. He tried, Nadia said. He bought us the basics. He paid the rent. He visited on a schedule. He would not stay if it was my night and you needed him for something urgent. He would go to you. She paused. I hated you for that sometimes. She put her hand on her chest. Astaghfirullah. I held up a hand. Do not ask me for forgiveness for feelings, I said gently. We are not angels, we are women. Then she said something that pulled the air from my lungs. When Adam was sick last year, she said, he did not come for 2 weeks. I was alone in the hospital. He was with you because your mother fell. He cried on the phone. He said, I am failing both of you. I said, then tell her. Ask her to help me, to help us. He said, she has already helped me enough. I saw Hassan in that moment, stretched thin across 2 chairs, trying to keep them from falling, failing at both. I felt anger then, but not like before. This time, it was a clean anger at cowardice, at a world that asks men to be brave and also tells them to hide. I stood to go. As I reached the door, the imam stopped me. There is one more thing, he said. Hassan asked me to tell you if you did not find the letter. He said he bought something for you. He planned to give it to you on your next anniversary. A gift? My voice was small. He nodded. He handed me a small box. Inside was a key with a tag on it. It said, Warm House. My hand covered my mouth. The key to a little place by the sea, a place he had finally been able to buy with the savings we had once kept under the bed, a place he planned to give me. The paper in the box held an address. My knees felt weak. He said he wanted to surprise you, the imam said, his eyes tender. He said he wanted you to smell the sea when you woke up. I laughed then, a sound like a sob. He surprised me, I said. The gentle joke held inside it a great sadness. On the tag, he had written the words, Warm House, in the old way we used to say it. He had remembered. He had remembered everything, and still forgotten the most important thing. The key became a weight in my pocket. I carried it with me, feeling its cold shape with my fingers when I needed something to hold, a symbol of a promise kept and another broken. I decided to go to the little house by the sea. I did not ask anyone to come with me. I did not want a witness to the moment I looked at a gift from a man who had also left a wound. I locked the apartment behind me, wrapped my shawl around my shoulders, and walked to the bus stop. The bus ride was slow. The road curved along the coastline in long sweeps. The sky was pale and kind. The sea breathed. I sat near the window and watched the light change on the water. At one stop, a woman got on with a bag of oranges. The smell filled the bus. I closed my eyes and thought of Hassan peeling an orange for me, splitting it into neat slices, placing the best one in my palm like a small sun. I felt tears rise and fall back. I was tired of crying in front of strangers. The address led me to a small lane near the beach. The houses were simple and close together, white walls, blue doors. I found the number and stopped. It was a small house with a narrow balcony and a tiny planter box under the window. The words "Warm House" were written on a little wooden sign above the door. My hands shook when I put the key into the lock. I turned it. The door opened softly, as if it had been waiting. Inside, the air smelled clean. There was a small living room with a worn couch, a low table, and a rug with blue threads that reminded me of waves. On the shelf lay a Quran and a framed photo of me and Hassan from years ago, standing by the coastline, my scarf flapping in the wind, his arm around my shoulders. He had placed the picture here, I thought, with care. In the corner, by the window, was a chair with a folded blanket on it, and on the kitchen counter was a brand new kettle, still in its box. I stood still and let the room hold me. I could feel his intentions in every corner. I could see his hands in the way the blanket was folded and the way the cups were placed. He had planned to bring me here and say, "See, I kept my promise." He had planned to watch my face light up. He had planned to laugh. He had planned. I walked to the balcony. The sea lay in front of me, close and endless. The wind touched my face like a soft hand. I placed my hands on the railing. I said, out loud, "Hassan." The name flew out and landed in the wind, and the wind carried it away. Behind me, the kettle ticked as the house warmed to my presence. I opened the box and washed the kettle. I boiled water and made tea. I placed the cup on the table and sat in the chair by the window. I held the cup with both hands and let the steam touch my face. For a moment, it felt like love again. For a moment, the room felt like peace. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Yusuf. "Mama, are you okay? Layla says you're not home." I sent him the address. He sent a question mark. I sent a picture of the little sign above the door. He wrote, "Baba wanted to give you that." I wrote, "I know." The sea moved in and out. Breath in, breath out. I think my heart matched it, slowly. I read Surah Yasin on the balcony, my voice low. When I finished, I cried quietly, not from rage, not from shock, but from the sadness of love tied to a life that had ended and a truth that had been twisted. I cried like a woman who has finally put down a heavy bag and realized her shoulders hurt. On my way back to the city, I decided to go somewhere else. Nadia's apartment. I needed to see something that my heart had been avoiding. I needed to open a door that I had not wanted to open. I called Nadia and told her I was coming if she was home. She said, "Yes, we are here." When I arrived, she greeted me with a smile that tried to be brave. "Adam is in his room drawing," she said. "Do you want tea?" I shook my head. I asked, "May I see his drawings?" She nodded. His room was small, with a bed against the wall and a desk under the window. Papers were spread out, covered in colors and lines. He had drawn parks and cars and a blue house with a little sign. The sign said, "Home." I picked up one drawing and froze. It was Hassan at the beach with Adam. I knew that bench. I knew that horizon. My heart stopped and then started again. "I want to see everything," I said softly. Nadia looked at me, confused. "Everything of Hassan here," I said. "Show me all of it." She took me to the living room. She pulled a box from under the couch. Inside were small things: a watch strap, a pen, a folded napkin with a joke Hassan had written on it, a ticket from a fair, a small carved wooden fish, a receipt for 2 ice creams. There was also a photograph I had never seen. Hassan in a doorway, holding Adam and making a silly face. Adam's head was thrown back in laughter. On the fridge, I saw a schedule with days marked: Monday, Wednesday, Saturday. Next to Saturday was a heart. The heart was small and neat. I realized I had never seen Hassan do that face before, that silly face. There were parts of him I did not know. The realization was like stepping on a piece of glass. It was small, but it cut. "May I take this?" I asked, holding the little wooden fish. Nadia nodded. "He bought it from a man by the sea," she said. "He said he wanted to bring you one too, but he forgot." The sentence stung. I put the fish in my bag. As I was leaving, I noticed a wall I had not paid attention to before. It held 2 frames. One had an ayah, "And we created you in pairs." The other had a simple poem written in Hassan's handwriting. 2 houses, 2 kettles, 1 heart divided. How long will it last? He had dated it last winter. I put my palm on the frame. It felt cool. I whispered, "Not long." Outside, the evening began to fold into night. Streetlights lit the road with small halos. I started walking home, my steps slow. I passed by the masjid and saw a few men standing on the steps, talking softly. Among them was a man I recognized, Omar, my son-in-law. He saw me and came quickly, concern in his face. "Mother," he said, "are you all right? Layla has been calling you." "I am walking," I said. "I needed air." He nodded. "May I walk with you?" We walked in silence for a while. Then he said, "Layla is not doing well. She is very angry." He hesitated. "At you?" "At me?" I was surprised. "Why?" "She thinks you are being too kind," he said carefully. "She thinks you should be more angry. She thinks you should never see that woman again." I smiled without humor. "People who love us sometimes want to save us with fire," I said. "But I have lived too long to burn everything." He nodded. I told her that sabr is not weakness, that forgiveness does not mean forgetting. She did not want to hear. He looked at the ground. "Be patient with her, please." "I will," I said. "She is my daughter. Her pain is my pain." When I reached home, I called Layla. She did not answer. I sent her a message. "I love you," I wrote. "I am not choosing anyone over you. I am choosing a path that lets me breathe." An hour later, she knocked on my door. She stood there, her face hard and shining. "Why are you meeting her? Why are you going to their house?" Her voice trembled. "This is humiliation." "It is not humiliation to face the truth," I said. "It is humiliation to run from it." "She stole my father," she said, her voice rising. "And you are sipping tea with her?" "She did not steal him," I said. "He gave himself." There is a difference that matters. Lila's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you defending her?" "I am defending myself," I said softly. "If I let hate sit in my chest, it will eat me. If I remember that she is also hurt, it will soften the edges. Soft edges do not break as easily." She stared at me. "I do not understand you," she said. "I thought you would throw plates, break the glasses, curse his name." "I have thought of it," I said. "But then who will clean up the pieces? Me. And I am tired." She laughed through her tears. It was a bitter laugh, but it softened in the middle. She stepped forward and hugged me. "I do not want to lose you too," she whispered. "Please, do not become someone I do not know." "I am trying to become someone I can live with," I whispered back. The next week, something happened that pushed everything into a sharp, painful light. Yusuf arrived with a folder of papers and a quiet face. He sat at the table, placed the folder down, and looked at me. "Mama," he said, "there is something else. I did not want to tell you because it will hurt, but hiding things is what brought us here." "Tell me," I said. My voice was calm. My heart prepared itself like a person who sees a wave coming and takes a breath. He opened the folder and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a bank statement. There were transfers listed, regular and neat. Baba used some of the savings from the warm house box years ago, he said, to pay for the deposit on Nadia's apartment. I stared at the numbers. They looked like tiny black stones. The warm house box, I repeated. The words were a fist in my throat. I remembered the cold nights in that first apartment. The wind under the door, the way Hassan's jacket felt on my shoulders, the way he put small bills into that box. I remembered how proud we were when we bought our first carpet. The box had been our hope. It had also been his rope to climb into another life. "I am sorry," Yusuf said, his voice soft. He put back more later, but the first deposit was from our box. I closed my eyes. It was a small detail in a larger story, but it was the detail that broke me. It was the piece of information that slipped through the cracks of my heart and landed in a place that hurt more than any other. I stood up and walked to the window. The street was quiet. A cat crossed slowly and disappeared under a car. "When did you know?" I asked. "A few months ago," he said. I found the statement while helping him organize. I confronted him. He cried, "Mama." He said, "I am a thief of my own promises." He wanted to tell you. He said he would. He kept saying he would. He swallowed. He ran out of time. I put my hand on the glass. It was cool. I took a breath that felt like it scraped my throat on the way down. "Please leave me, Yusuf," I said, "just for today." He stood quickly. "Mama, please, please," I repeated. I could not look at him. He left. The door shut softly. I sank to the floor by the window and began to cry. Not like before, not the quiet, careful tears of a woman who does not want to make noise in a house of guests. I cried like a mother in a market, not caring who hears. I cried for the girl who believed that a small box of savings was a promise written in gold. I cried for the woman who shared her pillows and her faith with a man who could not share his truth. I cried for the second woman who entered a marriage believing it would be a shelter and found it was a storm with a roof. I cried for a little boy who drew 4 figures under a yellow sun. In the middle of my tears, I heard the azan. It rose through the window like a hand offered to me. I wiped my face with my scarf. I stood and went to make wudu. I washed my hands, my mouth, my face. With each wash, I imagined the water carrying away some of the sorrow. I stood on the klasin, prayer mat, and began to pray. My voice trembled, my body steadied, I tasted salt in my mouth. When I prostrated, I stayed down a long time. I whispered, "Ya Allah, I am small. You are great. I am lost. You are the guide." When I sat up, the room felt different. Not better, just different. Like a storm that has moved slightly down the coast, still dangerous, but not directly above. That night, I had a dream. I was walking with Hassan along a narrow path between 2 fields. He walked ahead, as he sometimes did, his hands behind his back. He turned and looked at me. His face was tired and gentle. He said, "I am sorry." "In the dream," I said, "I know." Then he turned and kept walking. The path split into 2. He went one way, I went the other. I woke with tears on my face and a calm in my chest that was new. The next day, I went to see Nadia again. I did not tell anyone. When she opened the door, I walked in and went straight to the shelf with the photo of the silly face. I looked at it a long time. Then I turned to her. "We need to talk about the future," I said, "not about the past." She nodded, surprised. "Yes," she said. "I have been thinking about that too." "We will not be family," I said, and her face fell a little and then steadied. "Not in the way people use the word, but we will not be enemies. We will visit sometimes. We will help Adam grow up without hating the world. We will not make him choose sides." She put a hand to her mouth and began to cry. Not loud. Just a soft, steady sound like rain. Thank you, she said. There is something else, I said. He used the warm house box to pay your deposit once. I watched her face. She looked confused, then horrified. I did not know, she said quickly. He told me it came from his savings. I never asked. I should have asked. It is done, I said. The past is a country that does not need more visitors. We will spend our energy on the present. She nodded. I will never take more than what he left, she said. I will not fight you in court. I do not have the heart for that. She looked down. I never wanted to hurt you. I know that does not make it better. It does not, I said gently. It also does. We made a plan. We wrote down numbers, we wrote down days. We wrote down school needs for Adam and how Layla might help with art supplies if she wanted to. I did not know if Layla would be willing, but I put her name there anyway, like a seed thrown into the ground to see if it would grow. On my way home, I stopped at the masjid. I found Imam Karim in his office, writing something. He looked up and smiled gently. Mariam, he said, how are you? Learning to live with two truths, I said. That my husband loved me, and that he lied to me. He nodded slowly. Both can be true, he said. It does not make it easier, but it is part of life. People are not one thing. I want to ask you, I said, do I have to forgive him? Does Allah command me to forgive now? He thought for a moment. Allah commands justice and mercy, he said. Forgiveness is always blessed, but it is not a drop of water you can drink on command. It is a fruit that ripens in its own time. Your job is to cultivate the tree, prayer, patience, gratitude for what was good, noticing your own faults, asking for Allah's help. The fruit will come when it is ready. I exhaled. I will try, I said. He smiled. I know you will. And know this, Mariam, your calm is not weakness, it is strength. Your tears are not failure. They are proof that your heart is alive. I went home feeling both light and heavy. I was a woman carrying two bags, sorrow and strength. They balanced each other. That evening, Lila came again. She sat on the floor by my feet and rested her head on my knees. She did not speak at first. Her breathing was uneven. I placed my hand on her hair and moved it gently, the way I used to when she was small and afraid of the thunder. We stayed like that for a while. The house was quiet. The clock in the hallway ticked like a slow heart. Mama, she whispered. I'm sorry, I shouted. Her voice sounded young. I know, I said. Pain makes noise before it makes sense. She sat up and wiped her face with her sleeve. I feel like I'm split in two. I hate him for what he did. I love him because he was my father. I want to protect you. I also want you to be angry, because anger feels like protection to me. She shook her head. I don't know where to put these feelings. I nodded. We will put them in prayer, I said, and in action. We will be kind without being blind. We will be firm without being cruel. She looked at me for a long time. Then she took a breath that seemed to take courage from the air. Mama, she said, I need to tell you something. She placed my hand on her cheek. I am pregnant. For a moment, the room held its breath with me. Then I smiled, and the smile came from far away inside me, from a place that had not been touched by betrayal. Alhamdulillah, I said. My eyes filled with tears that did not sting. Alhamdulillah. She began to cry again, but this time the tears were different. I wanted to tell Baba like a surprise, she said. I imagined his face. I imagined him buying small shoes. She made a small sound, half laugh, half sob. Now I don't know how to carry the joy and the grief together. You will carry them both, I said, because you are my daughter. We have strong backs. I kissed her forehead. You will not be alone. She nodded against my knees. Promise me something, she said softly. Promise me you will not let her take more from us. Promise me you will keep a boundary. For me, for my baby. I promise to keep what belongs to us, I said, and I promise not to give away my peace. Those are the only promises I can make. The rest belongs to Allah. She sat up and took my hands in hers. I do not understand all your choices, she said, but I believe you are trying to do the right thing. She looked down. Please be patient with me if I am slow to forgive. I will, I said. Be patient with me too, if I forgive in a way that looks strange from the outside. The next day, I went to the masjid for a women's Quran circle. I had not been since the janazah. I needed the sound of Allah's words in a room with other hearts. The women hugged me carefully. They made dua for Hassan and for me. We sat in a circle with our mushafs open. The verses felt like cool water on a burn. After we finished, a few women stayed behind. They spoke in soft voices that were not soft enough. I heard she met the other wife, one said. I would never, another said. Men these days, wallahi. Another clicked her tongue and shook her head. How shameful. I could have left. I could have kept quiet. But I did not want my story to be a toy in other people's hands. I stood and faced them. Sisters, I said, my voice even, fear Allah with your tongues. The room went still. Do not throw stones into water that is already rough. I looked at each face until their eyes softened. I am doing what I must to protect my heart and a child's heart. Make dua for me. If you cannot make dua, keep my name off your lips. No one spoke. One woman nodded and touched her chest. Another began to cry quietly. I sat down and felt my breath come easier. In the days that followed, the house settled into a quiet rhythm. I woke for Fajr, I read. I cooked simple food. I visited Nadia and Adam once a week. Layla visited me often and brought fresh bread and dates. Yusuf handled papers and bills, moving carefully as if the floor might break under him. Sometimes the quiet felt like a friend. Sometimes it felt like a weight on my chest. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry, my phone rang. The Imam's name appeared. I answered quickly. Maryam, he said, his voice urgent but calm. Nadia fainted at the masjid. We are taking her to the clinic. Adam is with me. My heart began to race. I am coming, I said. I took my scarf, slipped on my shoes, and left without thinking. My hands shook as I locked the door. On the street, the air felt too bright. I walked fast, then faster, my breath short. At the clinic, the waiting room smelled of antiseptic and coffee. Adam sat in a chair with his small feet not touching the ground, his hands holding the edge of the seat. His face was pale. When he saw me, he stood and ran to me. Auntie, he whispered, pressing his face into my side. I put my hand on his head and felt the warmth of his small skull under his hair. Where is Mama? He asked. In the doctor's room, the Imam said gently. She will come out soon, insha'Allah. His eyes met mine, and I saw something there he had not said yet, a kind of carefulness. Sit with me, I told Adam. We sat. He leaned into me. I could feel his small heartbeat against my hip. The seconds were slow. A nurse walked by with a chart. A child cried in another room, then quieted. The door opened. Nadia came out with a nurse. Her face was pale but open. When she saw me, tears filled her eyes. The nurse smiled gently. She needs rest, she said. And she will need care. She is pregnant. The room tilted for a second, like a boat on a wave. The sound around me faded and then returned. I looked at Adam. He did not understand. He looked at my face to learn what to feel. I made my mouth gentle. I squeezed his shoulder. Alhamdulillah, I said softly. Nadia walked to us slowly. I did not know, she said, sitting down carefully. I thought it was stress. I thought it was grief. The doctor said I must eat better. I must be careful. Her hands shook. She looked at me with a question inside her eyes that she could not speak. I felt many things at once. A rush of anger, a wave of sorrow, a shock that moved through my bones, and a small, strange light. Another piece of Hassan on the way. Another child who would ask where his father was. Another test, another mercy. I thought of Layla's baby. 2 babies coming into a world that had become complicated and sharp. I thought of my heart as a room that had to grow bigger fast. I will help, I said, surprising myself with the swiftness of the words. We will help. I touched Adam's hair again. You will be a big brother, Habibi. He smiled, a small, unsure smile, and then looked worried. Will Baba see the baby? He asked. Baba will see in a way we cannot see, I said softly. We will tell the baby about him. We will tell the baby that Baba loved to cut apples into small pieces. He nodded, comforted by the small picture, not the big. Theology. Children are smart. They accept the parts they can hold. We left the clinic slowly. I walked with Nadia and Adam to a taxi. As they got in, I pressed a small bill into Adam's hand. For ice cream, I said. From your auntie. He looked at his mother. She nodded. He grinned. Thank you, he whispered. That night, I sat on my prayer mat a long time. I put my hands on my knees and looked at them. They were old hands. They had cooked, cleaned, comforted, held, and let go. They had given and taken. They had been empty and full. I turned them palm up and whispered, Ya Allah, you have sent me 2 babies to hold the same year. You took 1 man from me. Teach me how to hold without clinging. Teach me how to love without losing myself. The next morning, Layla came early. She had not slept. Her face was tight. I heard from Omar, she said. He saw the imam. He told him about the clinic. Her breath hitched. Is it true? Yes, I said. Nadia is pregnant. She stared at me like I had spoken in a language she did not know. I cannot, she said, shaking her head. I cannot look at that child. Then her hand went to her stomach, almost without her noticing. A small, protective gesture. Do not force yourself, I said gently. Your heart is also full. It is enough for now to take care of the life in you. She began to pace. How does Allah expect me to do this? She asked, looking at the ceiling. How does He expect me to share air with this story? Her fists clenched and then opened. I am not you, Mama. I do not have your calm. You have your own strength, I said. It will show up in a different shape. She stopped and faced me. Do you love that child already? She asked, her voice sharp. I do not know what word to give this feeling, I said, but I know I do not want to be the reason an innocent child carries a heavy heart. That is all I know today. She sank into a chair and covered her face. I am afraid, she whispered. Afraid that if I forgive, I will lose the only thing I have, my anger. Anger is a fire, I said softly. It can warm you for a little while. It can also burn your house down if you sleep in its glow. She lowered her hands. I hear you, she said. I do not know how to live it. We will learn day by day, I said. Today we will breathe. Tomorrow we will choose again. Later, Yusuf came with groceries and a face that had learned humility the hard way. He put the bag on the table and looked at me. "I heard," he said. "Are you all right?" "I am walking," I said, "one step at a time." He nodded. "Mama," he said, "I need to tell you one more thing." I braced myself and then let go. "What is it?" I asked. "The shop," he said. I spoke to the accountant. Baba had a small loan he took last year to cover both homes when business was slow. "It is not large. I can handle it. I do not want you to worry." He paused. "I am telling you because I do not want any more hidden things." "Thank you," I said. I felt tired, but grateful for his honesty. We will not hide from each other again. That evening, I took out Hassan's letter and read it again. I traced his words with my finger. "I am a thief of my own promises," he had written to Yusuf. I closed my eyes. "Ya Allah," I whispered. He was wrong, and he was also mine. The two truths sat side by side like two old women on a bench, not talking, but sitting in the same sun. A few days later, the community organized a small meal for Hassan's memory at the masjid. Men and women came, sat at separate tables, and ate quietly. The air was filled with the smell of rice and lamb and the murmur of du'as. Nadia came late, wearing a loose dress that did not yet show anything but spoke of care. Adam held her hand. People looked, then looked away. A woman, older than me, known for her sharp tongue and her quick charity, walked up to me. "Mariam," she said loudly, "you are generous to be here with her. I could never." She smiled without kindness. It was a test dressed as a compliment. I looked at her and felt a sudden strength move through me like a quiet river. "Sister," I said, "may Allah never test you with the test He gave me." She blinked. I added, "And if He does, may He give you the mercy He gave me." She pressed her lips together, nodded once, and walked away more slowly than she had come. Nadia stood at a distance, her eyes on the floor. I walked to her. "Sit," I said, and we sat together at the edge of the room. Adam played with a spoon, moving it like a car on the table. We did not talk much. We did not need to. Our presence was a small flag planted in the ground, two women choosing a path that others might not understand. That night, in my small kitchen, I put the kettle on and opened the window. The air smelled of rain. I took the key from my pocket and placed it on the table. I looked at it a long time. The warm house key was both a gift and a wound. Then I realized something that felt like a door opening inside me. The key was not the promise. We had called that dream the warm house because of how it felt to imagine a place where we were safe and loved. But safety and love do not live in walls. They live in hearts. A house can be kind or cruel depending on the truth that fills it. I had my warm house once already, a small apartment with thin walls and a big love. I could have another warm house now, even inside a world that had broken in two. The house was not the key. My heart was. This thought did not fix everything. It did not erase the pain. But it changed the angle of my sorrow. It made space for something new, a choice. The next morning, I called Nadia. "Come with Adam," I said. "I want to show you something." She sounded surprised, but she agreed. We met near the bus stop. Adam wore a cap that made his ears stick out. Nadia moved slowly and carefully. We traveled to the little house by the sea. The bus hummed, the road curved, the water breathed. When we reached the lane, I walked ahead and then turned to watch them approach. Nadia's eyes widened at the small sign over the door, "Warm House." She looked at me, confused. I opened the door and let them in. Adam ran to the balcony and gasped at the view. "The sea!" he shouted. Nadia stood in the middle of the room, her hand on her belly, her eyes filling. "He made this for you," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes," I said. "And he also used our dreams to build yours. Both are true." I took a breath. "I am going to keep this place," I said. "I am going to sleep here sometimes. I am going to bring Layla here when she is ready. I am going to learn to put peace back into my bones." I looked at her. "But I am also going to make space here." I opened a section drawer and took out a small notebook and a pen. I wrote "Adam's Corner" on a piece of paper and taped it to a small shelf by the window. "When you visit," I said, "he can keep a toy here, a book, a small car. He can know there is a place where both his worlds do not fight." Nadia began to cry. "Why would you do this?" she asked. "Because I am tired of being only a woman who was hurt," I said. "I want to be a woman who chose. I want to choose mercy, not because I am an angel, but because I want to live in a house where I can breathe." We sat on the balcony and watched Adam make roads with his finger on the table. The wind moved our scarves. The sea spoke its old, patient language. I felt something loosen in my chest. On our way back, we stopped at the masjid to pray Asr. As we finished, a young woman approached me. She was shy and thin, her eyes soft. "Auntie," she said, "I heard your story. I just wanted to say, you are strong." I shook my head. "No," I said. "I am just trying to be soft in the right places." She smiled and left. I stood there a moment longer and felt my lips move into a small smile of their own. When I got home, Layla was waiting at my door. She looked tired and angry and worried and hopeful all at once. "Where were you?" she asked. "At the sea," I said. "At the little house." I told her what I had done. Her face went from shock to disbelief to something like awe and fear mixed together. "I do not know if I can do what you are doing," she said. "But I see that you are not breaking." She touched my arm. "I want to be like you, not now, but one day." I pulled her close. "You will be better than me," I said. "That is how it should be." That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed and watched the shadows move on the ceiling. My mind was quiet for the first time in a long while. Then, in the middle of the night, a memory came to me, clear and sharp. Years ago, when Yusuf was little and Lila was a baby, Hassan had come home with a stray cat. It was thin and shy. He put a bowl of milk on the floor and sat far away so as not to scare it. "Let him come when he is ready," he had said. "Love waits." I smiled in the dark at the tenderness of that memory and at the irony of it. He had known one kind of patience and not another. In the morning, I woke with a calm I did not recognize. It was not joy, it was not relief. It was something like standing after a long time of kneeling, feeling the blood return to your legs. I made tea. I opened the window. The city smelled like fresh bread. I wrote a small list on a piece of paper. It had 3 lines. "Pray every time the anger comes. Do one kind thing that has nothing to do with this story. Speak gently to everyone in my house." I put the paper on the fridge. It looked like a small shield. Around noon, there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, I found a young boy, maybe 13, holding a small package. "Auntie Mariam?" he asked. I nodded. "From the hardware store," he said. "From Uncle Saeed," he added, naming Hassan's cousin who managed the accounts now. I took the package and thanked him. Inside were a few things Hassan had kept in a drawer: an old pocket knife, a tiny pair of scissors he used to trim threads, and a small notebook. I opened the notebook. It had a few lines of his handwriting at the back. "I must tell her," he had written. "I must tell her, I must tell her." The last line had been written harder, the pen pressing deep into the paper. I put my palm over the words and closed my eyes. I realized then, with a clarity that felt like a bell, that my anger at Hassan had changed shape. It was no longer standing in front of me, blocking my way. It was standing beside me, tired. I could walk with it now. I did not have to fight it every moment. In the late afternoon, I went to the masjid again. This time, I did not sit in the back. I sat near the front and listened to the imam talk about the story of Yusuf, peace be upon him. Betrayal by family, patience in prison, forgiveness at the end. He said a line that entered my chest like a key finding a lock. "Sometimes," he said, "the mercy you give is the mercy you yourself will need later." I walked home under a sky the color of milk. The air was cool. A neighbor nodded at me, respect in her eyes. I nodded back. When I reached my door, I put the key in the lock and paused. I thought of all the keys in my life. To the warm house, to my apartment, to my heart. I turned the key and entered. That evening, Yusuf and Lila came together. We ate soup at the table and did not talk about heavy things. We talked about the weather, about the price of tomatoes, about the neighbor's cat that had given birth on the roof. We laughed once or twice. It felt like a small bridge being built plank by plank. When they were about to leave, Lila stood by the door and looked at me in a way that made my heart soften. "Mama," she said, "I am afraid to ask this, but I need to. Do you still love Baba?" Her voice wavered. I thought carefully. I did not want to lie. "Yes," I said. "I love the part of him that was kind and steady and mine. I do not love the part of him that lied. Both are in my heart now. Both will probably stay. I will have to learn to live with both." She nodded slowly. "That is the hardest thing I ever heard," she said, "and maybe the bravest." She kissed my cheek and left with Yusuf, their steps soft in the hall. After they left, I stood at the window and watched the last light of the day slide off the roofs. I felt my heart move in my chest like a bird that had been trapped and finally found a bigger cage, not free, but less small. I understood then what the story of my life had become. It was no longer only the story of a woman who discovered at a grave that she was not the only wife. It was the story of a choice made over and over, in small rooms and quiet moments, to be a source of mercy in a world that had shown me its sharpness. It was the story of a key on a table. It was the story of 2 children on the way. It was the story of a word I finally learned to speak without choking. Qadr. Destiny. Not the kind that breaks you so you never stand again, but the kind that breaks you open so something new can grow. In that moment, I whispered something I had been afraid to say aloud because I had not been sure it was true. "Hassan," I said into the quiet room, "I forgive you." The words were not heavy. They did not taste like iron. They tasted like water after a long thirst. I did not forgive everything all at once. I forgave the part that I could. It was enough for that night. I went to sleep with the window open. The city breathed. The world turned. Somewhere, 2 babies were growing, unseen, quietly, as if they knew that patience sometimes looks like silence. The days of my Ida passed like beads through a slow hand. I marked them with prayer, with tea, with quiet chores that kept my body moving. I counted sunsets more than I counted dates. I watched the light change on the floor from morning to evening. My heart moved with it, a little brighter some days, a little dimmer on others. I kept my routine simple. After Fajr, I read Quran and asked Allah to make my heart a soft place again. I cooked small meals that did not require too much thinking. I kept the house clean and let the silence be my companion. When anger came, I whispered, "Sabr," until it passed like a wave. Razia came one afternoon with a bag of oranges and a guilty face. She stood on the threshold like a child who had broken a window. "May I come in?" she asked. I nodded and stepped aside. We sat at the table, the oranges bright between us. "I have replayed everything," she said, not looking at me. "What I said, what I did not say. I hope Allah will forgive me. If you cannot, I will understand." Her voice was tied in knots. I looked at her hands. They were working hands, with small cuts from needles and thread. "I forgive you," I said. "Not because I forgot, and not because it did not hurt. I forgive you because I am tired of carrying heavy things that do not belong to me." She began to cry, her shoulders shaking. I reached across and squeezed her fingers. They were warm and human. At night, I made small plans for the morning. I would wash the curtains. I would oil the wooden chairs. I would sort the old spice jars and throw out what was stale. These were not big plans, but they kept me steady. Sometimes I laughed at myself for finding comfort in cumin and cardamom. Small things can hold a heart together when big things fall apart. Layla visited often with her hand resting on her belly. She was softer in her anger now, not because she had forgotten, but because a new love was growing inside her. We sat on the couch with our feet up on a stool, two women waiting for the same sun. I taught her how to fold tiny clothes. I showed her how to knit a simple baby blanket. We chose yarn together, creamy white for her child, pale green for the other baby who would join this strange family. She looked at the green yarn and shook her head. "I cannot," she whispered. "Not yet." I touched the yarn with my palm. "I will knit for both," I said. "You can borrow my piece when you need it." She leaned her head on my shoulder and breathed. I kept my visits to Nadia simple and few. I brought soup sometimes, or a bag of oranges, or a bottle of fresh milk. We did not talk about Hassan too much. We talked about vitamins and sleep, and the way grief sneaks into your day at odd times, like a cat that appears on your windowsill out of nowhere. Adam watched us with serious eyes. He learned from us what the world was like. One evening, Adam had a small school event. He told me shyly that his teacher said families could come. "Can you come, Auntie?" he asked, twisting the string of his hoodie in his fingers. I looked at Nadia, and she nodded. "Yes," I said. "I will come." The classroom smelled like pencils and glue. Children's drawings lined the walls. They had drawn their homes, their pets, their dreams. Adam showed me a picture with two small houses and a bridge between them. "This is yours," he said, pointing. "And this is mine." His finger moved along the bridge. "This is how I come to you." My throat tightened. I put my hand on his head and kissed his hair. A quick, quiet kiss. I visited the warm house by the sea once a week. I cleaned the windows until the light felt clear. I placed a small pot of basil on the balcony. I spread a prayer mat in the corner and sat there with my tasbih until my breath matched the waves. On a low shelf, I made a little space for Adam, a small basket with a blue car, a picture book, and a pencil. I wrote his name on a card in careful letters and slipped it inside. Each visit taught me something new. The sea taught me that motion can be calm. The wind taught me that touch can be gentle. The empty chair taught me that absence can be a kind of presence when you fill it with dua. I did not run from the memories in that house. I asked them to sit beside me. I let them speak, and then I let them go. Hassan's sister Salma came by once, her face tight with judgment and grief. She stood with her arms folded and said, "I will never accept what he did." Her voice was like a door slammed in winter. "And I don't accept her," she added, meaning Nadia. I won't speak her name. I cannot make you accept anything, I said calmly. But I will not let your anger walk through my home. Leave your shoes at the door. She stared at me, surprised, and then her face softened a little. We sat, we drank tea. She talked about Hassan as a boy who climbed trees and broke his arm and cried when a stray dog died. She cried into her scarf. We made space for two versions of him in the same room. The paperwork moved forward with slow dignity. Yusuf handled most of it with a careful, apologetic heart. He brought me forms and explained them in simple words. We divided what had to be divided. We followed the law. I did one thing that was not required. I told Yusuf to set aside a small sum each month for Adam's school and the new baby's needs. This is from me, I said. Not from the past, from now. He nodded, his eyes bright. Mama, he said, you are better than us. I shook my head. I am only trying to be better than my yesterday. One afternoon, Layla felt a sharp pain and grew pale. Omar took her to the clinic. He called me from the waiting room, his voice tight with worry. I went straight there with a small bottle of water and a silent prayer. We sat together under harsh lights and talked about nothing in particular. A neighbor's new curtains, a sale on rice, the weather. We waited for her name to be called. It felt like a test. The doctor came out with a gentle smile. She must rest more, she said. No heavy lifting, no stairs if possible. The baby is fine. Relief washed over me in a wave that left me tired and grateful. I kissed Layla's forehead and whispered, Alhamdulillah. On the way home, I sent a message to Nadia. Please make dua for Layla and the baby. She wrote back, I am making dua right now. It was a small thread between us. Threads like that can hold a bridge. Another day, Nadia called me crying. The doctor says I have to be careful, she said. My blood is low. I feel weak. I went to her with lentil soup and a bag of spinach and a list of reminders written in big letters. Rest, water, vitamins. She laughed through her tears at my list. You sound like a mother, she said. I am a mother, I replied. It is a habit I cannot turn off. We smiled at each other through our enmity, tiredness. I returned often to the letter. Hassan had left me. I read it until the words became smooth stones in my hand. Forgive me later, he had written. If you cannot forgive me later, forgive me in your duas. I realized that forgiveness was not a single door I could walk through with one step. It was a hallway with many doors. Some opened to small rooms with soft chairs and quiet. Some opened to rooms with wind and sand. Some I would open later, after sleep and more tea. That was all right. When my Ida ended, I woke before dawn with a quiet awareness, like the soft moment when the call to prayer will begin and the city is holding its breath. I made ghusl. I put on a clean dress and a scarf, the color of the first light. I sat on my prayer mat and whispered, the waiting is over, the living begins. After Fajr, I opened the window and let the morning in. The world smelled new. I went to the cemetery with Yusuf. We walked between the stones, careful not to step, where people lay. I stood at Hassan's grave and felt the wind on my face. I did not speak to him like a woman in a play. I spoke to Allah. I recited what I knew. I asked for mercy for his soul, for light in his grave, for forgiveness for his mistakes and mine. I asked Allah to write us among the grateful. As we left, I placed my hand on the cool stone and said in my heart, go in peace. I am learning to be well. I chose small things after that. I bought fresh flowers for the table. I wore the blue scarf again and did not feel like it was choking me. I gave away 3 dresses I no longer needed and kept one of Hassan's sweaters, the gray one with the soft elbows. I wore it on cold mornings and felt a gentle weight on my shoulders that did not hurt. The warm house became a place where my chest could expand. I took Layla there for an afternoon. We sat on the balcony with our feet up and drank tea with sugar we did not need. She placed her hand on her belly and listened to the sea. "I think I am ready to forgive him a little," she said, not looking at me. "I think the baby forgave him before I did." I laughed softly, and so did she. We let the wind carry our laughter. Later, I took Adam there with Nadia. He kept his toy car in his basket and lined up his pencils in a neat row. "This is my corner," he said proudly. "This is your corner," I agreed. Nadia stood at the railing with her hands on her belly and stared at the water a long time. When she turned back, her eyes were full but calm. "Thank you," she whispered. I nodded. Some words do not need an answer. As the months passed, the community softened. Gossip grew bored and moved elsewhere. The women at the masjid began to come to me, not with salt on their tongues, but with tears in their eyes and questions in their hands. One woman said, "My husband speaks with a widow from work. I do not know what to do." Another said, "My son hides things from me. How did you speak to Yusuf?" I did not give fatwas. I gave them what I had: time, tea, and the truth that patience can live next to anger in the same room. I started a small circle on Thursdays at the masjid. Not a formal class, just a space. We read short surahs and spoke about the names of Allah, Ar-Rahman, the most merciful, Al-Hakim, the all-wise, Al-Latif, the subtle. I asked the women to keep their words soft and their eyes kind. We made dua for each other. We asked forgiveness for our tongues. We promised to check on the sisters who did not come. It felt like planting small trees in dry ground. Yusuf grew into his new role at the shop. He hired a young man to help and learned to say, "I don't know, I will ask," instead of pretending he knew everything. He came to me with questions about invoices and suppliers and how to handle a customer who shouted. I listened as he spoke, proud of him even when he made mistakes. Sometimes he cried in my kitchen, not long cries, but small ones that came, when he was tired and lonely. I wiped his tears with the edge of my scarf like I did when he was small, and we both pretended not to notice. The day Layla gave birth, the city was hot. The hospital room smelled like soap and fear. Omar held her hand and whispered, "Breathe," over and over like a prayer. I stood at her head and stroked her hair. When the baby's cry finally filled the room, my legs felt weak. The nurse placed a small, red-faced girl on Layla's chest. Layla cried. Omar laughed and cried together. I said, "Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah," until the words became a hum in my throat. We named her Noor. Light, it fit. She had tiny fingers and a mouth that opened and closed like a small fish. When the adhan was whispered into her ear, I closed my eyes. I saw Hassan in my mind for a moment, smiling with his hands open, reaching for her. Then I let the picture go. Noor slept with her little fists near her face, brave without knowing she was brave. A month later, Nadia's labor began in the night. She sent me a message when she reached the hospital. I sat on my prayer mat and made dua until my back hurt. I asked Layla to make dua too. She paused for a moment, then said, "I will." When the baby came, a girl with black hair and heavy eyes, Nadia sent me a picture. "Her name is Hiba," she wrote, "a gift." I stared at the tiny face on the screen. I put my hand on my chest and whispered, "Welcome." I went to see them the next day. I stood at the door with a soft blanket in pale green. Nadia held Hiba in her arms and looked both exhausted and glowing. Adam hovered nearby with a protective face. I washed my hands. I sat. May I asked. Nadia nodded. I held Hiba, felt her warm weight, felt her breath against my wrist. She opened one eye and then slept again. She smelled like milk and newness. My father will never hold her, Nadia said softly, meaning Hassan. Her eyes filled but did not spill. It hurts. I know, I said. But Allah holds her, and we will hold her together. Adam leaned against me and touched his sister's foot with one finger, as if touching something holy. In a way, he was. Time is a strange thing. It moves slowly when you wait, then quickly when you look back. Noor and Hiba grew in small, important ways. A smile, a grip, a first loud cry that sounded like a claim on the world. I watched their mothers learn to be mothers again. Layla with her lists and her gentle, bossy way. Nadia with her quiet eyes and her quick humor. I watched Adam turn into a brother who collected little socks, who put his ear to his sister's chest to hear the small drum inside. He made 2 small drawings, one of Noor and one of Hiba. He hung them side by his bed. On a soft evening when the sky was the color of apricots, we met at the sea. I chose the hour when the light is kind, when people are tired and more honest. I brought a basket with bread and olives and a small bottle of honey. Lila came with Noor, nervous but willing. Nadia came with Adam and Hiba, also nervous but willing. We sat on the same bench where Hassan and I had once sat laughing at the waves. Now we sat with a careful peace. There was awkward silence at first, like a new pair of shoes. Then Adam made a silly face at Noor, and she smiled with her gums. Layla laughed. The laugh loosened something. Nadia handed Lila a napkin. "Your scarf," she said, pointing to a small stain from the baby. Lila thanked her. The babies slept as if they knew we needed time to learn how to sit beside each other without flinching. We did not talk about Hassan. We talked about diapers and the price of cucumbers. We talked about how the wind always makes babies sleepy. We shared bread without measuring who took more. We watched the sun sink. When we stood to go, Adam placed his toy car in his basket at the warm house and said, "It will be here next time." "Yes," I said, "it will." That night, in my apartment, I opened the small notebook that had Hassan's last lines. On the first blank page I wrote, "Today we ate by the sea. No one cried. The wind was kind. Thank you." I traced the words with my finger until they felt like a prayer. I realized something else, something gentle and strong. The love I had for Hassan had changed its seat. It was no longer a guest that demanded the best chair and the biggest plate. It sat at the table like a quiet old friend who knew when to speak and when to listen. It did not push me. It did not pull me. It sat with me and made space for new loves. A grandson I would hold one day, a small girl named Noor, who grabbed my scarf with her whole fist. A tiny Hiba, whose heartbeat I could feel through her blanket. A boy named Adam, whose serious eyes still asked big questions. On a rainy morning, I put on my coat and walked to the masjid for a janazah of an old neighbor. The air smelled like wet earth and coffee. As the women recited, I felt my tears rise. I was crying for the neighbor, but something else moved inside the tears. It was gratitude. Gratitude that Allah had not left me alone in my sorrow. Gratitude that He had put people in my path who softened my days. Gratitude that my own heart, which I thought was a broken jar, could still hold water. In the afternoon, I sat with my tasbih and thought about the names of Allah again. Ar-Rahman, Al-Hakim, Al-Wadud, the most loving. I thought about how Allah's love does not depend on our perfection. It is not like human love that gets scared and hides. It is wide and deep and patient. It made me breathe easier. A young woman from our Thursday circle asked me if I would speak to a group of brides to be about marriage. "We want real words," she said. "Not pretty ones. We want truth with mercy." I laughed softly and said, "I will bring tea." I told them simple things, that love is daily bread, not cake, that honesty is the water that keeps the bread soft, that secrets mold in the dark, that forgiveness is for yourself as much as for the other person, that qadr is not an enemy when you trust the one who writes. I told them, make your home a place where Allah is remembered more than your pain. I told them, do not keep score with your husband like a shop ledger. I told them, be soft in the right places and firm in the right places, and ask Allah to show you which is which. They listened with wide eyes and nodded. I prayed for them quietly as I washed the cups afterward. Sometimes, late at night, I still woke and reached for the other side of the bed. My hand found only the cool sheet. In those moments, I let the loneliness sit beside me. I told it, "You are welcome for a little while." I did not fight it. I did not invite it to stay forever. I closed my eyes and whispered the small du'as I knew until sleep returned like a kind old aunt. I visited Hassan's grave again on a clear morning. I took a small bag, of fresh dates, and a heart that no longer shook. I stood and made dua for a long time. At the end, I whispered in my heart, I do not know where you are in your journey now. I pray it is a place of mercy. I pray that when we meet again, it will be without secrets, without fear. I forgive what I can today. Tomorrow I will try again. The wind touched my face like a blessing. In my kitchen, the kettle still sang. I still brewed tea too strong sometimes. I still burned the bottom of the rice pan on busy days. The ordinary returned in a way that felt like a miracle, slicing onions, sweeping crumbs, closing windows at dusk. These small acts were prayers, without words. I did them with the intention to rebuild my life in the name of Allah, who sees even the way we fold cloth. On the wall, the list I had written months before remained. Pray every time the anger comes. Do one kind thing that has nothing to do with this story. Speak gently to everyone in my house. I added a fourth line in my own slow handwriting. Expect good from Allah. I am an old woman now, but not so old that I cannot learn. I learned that love is not a guarantee against harm. I learned that truth can be late and still be needed. I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or erasing yourself. It means choosing which part of yourself will lead you. I learned that family is not just blood and papers. It is the daily work of showing up, of washing a cup, of folding a blanket, of changing a diaper while your heart aches and still remembers how to sing. It is the kindness of a neighbor who leaves bread at your door. It is a boy named Adam who draws a bridge and believes it can hold. I learned that Allah does not ask us to be perfect in our tests. He asks us to turn to Him. He asks us to be patient when we can, to be generous when we can, to be truthful as much as we can, and to keep asking Him for more. He fills the gaps we cannot fill ourselves. Maybe Allah wanted me to lose the life I thought I had, so I could find a different life that was more honest. Maybe Allah wanted me to see that peace is not handed to you. You build it with prayer, with boundaries, with soft words, with brave actions, with the way you hold a baby who is not yours and still make dua from your deepest heart. The day I learned my husband had taken another wife, it felt like a door slammed so hard that the walls shook. Today, I can say that another door opened. It opened to a room where my faith was bigger than my anger. It opened to a window with the sea, to a shelf with a toy car, to 2 cribs on 2 sides of the city, to a table where women shared their stories with tears and tea, to a grave that does not take love but transforms it into prayer. I still speak to Hassan sometimes, not in words for him, but in words for me. I say, "May Allah forgive us both." I tell the babies stories about a man who loved olives and silly jokes, and who forgot to be brave when it mattered most. I teach them that people are not one thing. I teach them that Allah is one, and that is why we have hope. If you are listening to me now, and your heart is aching in a way that makes it hard to breathe, come sit beside me. We will breathe together. We will put the kettle on. We will cry if we must. Then we will pray. Then we will make a list, small and kind. Then we will expect good from Allah. This is how the heart learns to stand again. I am grateful, grateful for the years that were sweet and the years that were bitter. Grateful for the lies I survived and the truth I now live. Grateful for the babies who sleep with their arms thrown over their heads like little sultans. Grateful for the sea and the wind and the old gray sweater. Grateful for the chance to tell you my story, so that maybe your heart will feel a little less alone. If you were in my place, would you knock on Nadia's door or keep your distance in silence, and why? Tell me in the comments. Which country are you watching from? Share it below. Don't forget to follow Voices of Fatima, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this message.